All right, welcome to the webinar here. My name is Matt. I'm filling in for Sean today. I'm on the call here. I've been in construction since I was 18 or so. So for the past 10 years, everything from in the field swinging a hammer to doing sales and back office stuff. I've been with Sean since back in 2014. Here with Guy with One Click Contractor and Dominic with Grosso University. I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves, and we've got a great webinar here for you today about implementing proven processes into your systems, into your company, to your sales team, to see growth happen. So, guys, why don't you take it away? Introduce yourselves. We'll get right on in.
Tom, go for it. Go for it, Tom.
All right. My name is Dominic Caminata. I'm the owner and co-founder of Grosso University. So Grosso University is taking on the legendary training and consulting of Rick Grosso. And the way we explain it, we offer legendary training for the modern world. So taking a proven step selling sales methodology and then learning how to integrate that now with all the latest technologies and, of course, the short attention span of the typical buyer today, and learning how to effectively influence people. Because, again, there's a lot of challenges as people become more distracted and busier than ever before in history. We got to be more on our A game as to how we're executing these sales processes. So I started in this industry in 2010 with a company some of you may have heard of called Mad City Roofing, Siding, Windows, and Baths. I started off as a sales representative in that company. After being the natural leader and mastering the sales process, I was promoted to sales trainer. And within 9 years, we grew that company from doing 4.8 million. This year, they did over 160 million. So the process works. And that's my case study that people really get excited about when I train people on sales leadership or building the foundation to grow and scale your sales team. People know that comes from real world experience, and we're still today actively in the business. As a matter of fact, my partner here at Grosso University is Nick Richmond, who is the president and co-founder of Matrix Home Solutions. So anything that we train people on, whether it's what technologies to use, how to integrate those technologies, how to build and grow your sales department, we know it works because we test it out in real life situations actively in the business. So that's just a very short and sweet introduction. I can talk about myself for hours, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to Guy.
Thanks, Dom. So my background, been in construction, oh my gosh, since the early 80s. Done everything from chasing storms to working on high rises, high-end custom homes, you name it, all across the United States. One thing that I'm really excited about this conversation is I probably learned the hard way. I'm sure it was the hard way. I wished I had met Dominic and his team, oh my gosh, when I was 30, to be able to scale and grow businesses. I think a lot of us that get in the trades, not many of us go to business school. Not many of us learn how to be very efficient at selling. You're a small contractor, you're starting out, and oftentimes you're wearing many hats, and it's really it's prudent that as a business owner you focus on how do you learn skills to grow your business, because otherwise the business owns you. It's no different than, I guess, owning a restaurant. But hopefully today we can share some insights. I'm head of marketing for One Click Contractor. It's a sales enablement platform. Our tool works hand in hand in what the Grosso team teaches. So we're really looking forward to sharing some insight.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you both for your intros. I'm excited for the call. I've done very little home indoor, in-person home improvement sales. Mostly got a lot of my sales experience here at Contractor Appointments, selling over the phone. Actually worked as a service writer for HVAC company, and I didn't know I was in sales, sending out big commercial, just making like standard, weekly phone calls to all my, $15,000 to $50,000 service repairs just on rooftop units. And I didn't know I was in sales, but I was in customer service. And then I hooked up with Sean. But for context, today we're talking about contractors who are maybe in that $3 to $5 million range. They're having some success building a business. There's passion. There's lots of different plates spinning in terms of the business. And what does it look like if that's you and you're listening to the webinar? What's it look like to go from where you're at today to that growth curve, similar to what Dominic has been a part of? And everybody's got different visions for where they're headed and how fast they want to get there. But that's really what we want to actually unpack here today between Guy and Dominic. Specifically, how does the technology actually play a part of that? Because we're seeing just rapid adoption of technology across multiple industries, and that's going to impact the home improvement space. So how do we continue to adapt? So first question that I've got here is, so having a unifying process. So how do you get alignment and belief amongst your entire team? Because kind of from the top to the bottom, in your actual sales process. So that's going to be sales and marketing people, back office, kind of, technologist, kind of the whole thing. And whoever wants to start with that, I'll let you guys jump in.
So one thing that my partner at Grosso University says often is the fish stinks from the head down. So leadership, if you want your team to really believe in anything, you first as the leader need to wholeheartedly believe in what practice what you preach. It was always easy for me to instill belief into my team over a certain sales methodology, a certain set of guidelines, policy, procedures, benchmarks, because I was 100% completely and utterly passionate and believed in it myself. You got to be able to convey that belief to your team. I actually ask people this often when I do my public speaking. What's the number one most important thing you need to train into your sales team? And I get a variety of answers, but my simple answer to that question is belief. Now, how do I accomplish that? Well, we need to figure out what is the best sales process to sell my specific product and service consistently, where it's a paint by number system where I could train people of all walks of life to follow a structured process that works more often than not. And then I, as the leader, must take responsibility for mastering that and learning that myself. Now, we understand most owners maybe don't have the time or the bandwidth to do that. And that's why, to your point here, when you get to that $3 to $5 million range, what a lot of our clients end up doing is seeking out a really good quality sales leader that can, in a way, take the baton and run with it full speed to grow and scale that sales division. Now, me at Grosso University, what I spend my time doing is I spend my time training sales leaders how to build the foundation to grow and scale your sales team. And this is one mistake I see contractors making, by the way, I just want to mention, is I see them trying to grow and scale their sales department with no foundation. They don't have any sales process. They don't have any policy and procedure. There's no clarity on what the benchmarks are. There's no set guidelines for lead handling etiquette. They're just wild, wild west shooting from the hip. And then they wonder why when I get to the $3 to $5 million range, I hit a wall and I can never seem to get past it. So that's why I do is I take these sales leaders or these owners. Here's the foundation. Here's what we need. Here's your comp plan. Here's your policy and procedure. Here's your sales process. Here's how you train the sales process. The whole process from A to Z, how to grow and scale the sales division. And once they have that foundation, then it truly is unlimited where they can take it or how quickly they can take it. I can point to some case studies. For example, I was working with a company in New Jersey recently. Last year, they did $6 million. They kind of in that $3 to $5 million range. Right. And we spent several months getting that foundation built. In 2021, they did 18 million, just like that. Boom. It was off like a rocket ship because then they had the foundation in place. But leadership needs to take responsibility, not just for learning that new sales process, but again, getting those foundational elements rock solid before trying to get past that 6, 7, 8 million, because you're just going to completely burn yourself out as an owner. There's no way you're going to be able to manage that effectively.
Yeah, and Dom, how would you say the technology is well? I would just give a little shout out for One Click Contractor as an example, using a tool, sales platform. I mean, how is that? It certainly is standardizing that process to making it more consistent. And have you seen a sales team be more effective across the board and not having a bunch of mistakes when they use a tool like One Click?
Yeah, I mean, there's a million benefits to a program like One Click Contractor to make a sales team very turnkey, where they can hit the road running out of the box. Like you said, not making as many mistakes. When I first started coaching the guys at Mad City, growing and scaling the sales team, we did everything on paper, the old-fashioned way. And the first 6 months is the reason why I didn't have any hair. You know, you're ripping your hair out because not only can you not read any of the handwriting, but they're selling things off menu. They're not pricing things out correctly. So for a sales rep, day one to come out of the gate using a technology like One Click to make sure they're quoting the job properly, they're staying on menu, they're holding tight to within a certain margin of profitability, and make sure they're selling the financing properly. I mean, you can go on and on. But technology is a huge aspect of this. And kind of on our side with the technology, We have our whole online training platform, which literally has hundreds of hours of training content. And I think of that as a virtual lane assist for your sales team, because you can hold them accountable. The thing that's great about these new online platforms for growing and scaling sales teams is you can set curriculum. So if I'm a sales leader, I can literally put assignments in there. There's a whole video training course where after every video, they have testing they have to take. And unless they pass those tests at 100% proficiency, they're not able to run leads independently, right? So there's a lot of different elements to technology, whether it be virtual training, using programs like One Click Contractor. It kind of takes the excuses out of the equation.
Yeah.
But literally, the good thing is you can totally defy the 80-20 rule by embracing these foundational technology elements where 80% of your team is wildly successful and only 20% of them need the additional coaching or grooming. And that's what we've done time and time again with our clients, is ensuring that once the foundation is established, that everybody they bring in, you actually got to be creative not to realize loads of success. So.
Yeah, and I liked you mentioned the financing. I mean, that's something that you guys teach. That oftentimes I have many contractor friends that when I ask them, "Hey, are you offering financing?" and one of them said, "Well, my clients, they have the money." I'm like, "No, you're missing the point here. There are times where there's advantages to offer that and not only increase your ticket size, but maybe there's a reason for the person to want to use the financing, even if it's short term. And you guys are teaching that. Again, if it's built into a tool, that just makes it easier for them to increase their size of their jobs, correct?
Yeah, I say you should only offer financing if you want to make more money. If you don't want to make more money, then don't worry about it. But financing is a huge part. I mean, I spent a good 3 or 4 days of my training educating them how to use financing as a boomerang to the sale, how to close more business more often. The more simple and more painless you can make it for your prospect to move forward, the easier it is to close that business. And I'm not the smartest guy on the planet Earth, but I learned a long time ago that over 60% of the country cannot afford a $500 debt. So now how many people can afford a $5,000 debt or $10,000? Right. You're talking a very small percentage of the population. That's why financing, in my opinion, is not even optional. It should be mandatory. And we don't just say, here's your financing, go figure it out. Say, here's your great finance partner. Here's all the different plans. And here's how you use financing as a boomerang to the sale. And that's how you get these 60, 70, 80% sales closers where they're literally writing up $4 or $5 million a year by themselves. That's never going to happen if you're relying on cash buyers. So,
yeah, I think your response was much more eloquent than mine was to my friend. I said, do you want to continue to be Chuck in a truck or Charlie with the fleet? So figure out how to offer financing.
Oh yeah, that's so important. That's what I love about your program here is whether a sales rep has the presentation they're demonstrating to the prospect, whatever proposal tools they have in place, but also having all the financing integrated right in there. It literally is the epitome of a paint by numbers system. And it makes it a lot easier for the owners and leaders to train and onboard their salespeople. It expedites so many things. Because again, going way back when I first started training reps to fill out all these paper credit applications and all these paper contracts, it was like a day and a half of just filling out paperwork and then relying on the sales rep's penmanship and the legibility of their writing. It's just a nightmare. So if we can take that out of the equation, have a turnkey proposal tool, all the software integrated all in once, even like the ability to process a down payment, like you can have all that built right in. I mean, for a contractor, this is an absolute gift. I mean, it's incredible that these things exist, but learning how to use them is really the key.
Yeah. I mean, I've written that. So I'm a note taker. So you guys might have guessed that here, but I like an old fashioned. So, okay. So I've wrote down, so foundationally, we started with belief. We've also got to have training, right, on how to actually do some of this stuff. Accountability has been mentioned, and now we're even getting to the nitty gritty of financing. So we're looking at this full stack process, right? Which we're not going to get to revamp your entire business on this call today, but we're starting to see the full stack. I want to go back to belief because I actually do think that I love that you started with that one because we're talking about technology and scripting and training and all these very tangible things. We actually start with one of these intangibles. And Guy, you can start with this question. How do you know, because you guys are engaged in sales conversations, just like I am, right, with these contractors, how do you know when the guy on the other end, guy or gal, I should say, on the other end of the call is really committed and has a conviction on the belief side of things to actually adopt the technology side of it, because I think that's a big, like, I get a lot of hesitation, a lot of mixed feelings around, like, is this really, is it going to be an additional expense, and is it going to work? Like, how do you know when that belief is really there?
Yeah, I mean, Dom, you've got more experience in that regard, but what I see is how engaged is the owner operator? I mean, no matter how big the company is, if they're just handing it off to somebody else, or how involved are they? What are the metrics behind looking at how is this going to be successful? When somebody adopts our platform, you don't just sign up one day. It's not an app that you download from Apple Store. There's a lot that goes into it. You need to have your pricing in place, because we're configuring our tool to your pricing and what services you're offering. So there's an investment in time, and right out of the gates, if we see that the owner's involved and they're getting the contracts back so that everything is done in our tool electronically, the sooner that they get that stuff, the faster they're up and running with our program. That's where we usually see it. I don't know, you probably see it from a different perspective, but
yeah, the biggest thing, again, when I was managing at Mad City Windows and Bass, I always say I ran Wisconsin's largest adult daycare center. So, when you quantify all the change orders and the things that salespeople sell that aren't quoted properly or mismeasured, or the things they sell off menu, and all the issues in production, the back end of the business, for a company like ours, it was millions of dollars. That if you quantify all that stuff throughout the year, millions of dollars in problems from doing things the old-fashioned way. Okay, so if I'm a contractor wondering, do I want to continue to pay hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in mistakes and problems and change orders and production issues and customer service, or would it be a good return on my investment to invest in a platform like One Click Contractor, where it literally takes all the mistakes completely out of the equation? And literally, I mean, you would have to be super creative to have those same mistakes come back again. To me, it's a no-brainer. So again, if they're not hitting the road running, jumping all over that to build that out, again, they're just in a position kind of like the financing conversation where I guess they're just comfortable where they're at, right? If you truly are a contractor that wants to take your business to the next level, again, I hate to say this, but to me, that's not optional. I think you have to fully embrace this technology, because again, the amount of headaches you're going to alleviate yourself out of, the amount of production and ordering mistakes, the amount of money you're going to save, it's going to pay for itself 100 times over in the long run. It's not even funny. I mean, how much money you're going to save and the headaches you're going to alleviate yourself from.
Okay.
That's the way I explain it. It's like the return on investment. That's where we have to focus on, is what's the return on investment in all these things, from the sales process, from the technology that we're integrating. What are they going to realize as their cost benefit analysis, right?
Yeah, and Matt, I would just finish by saying that when we've seen an owner hand off to a sales manager, and maybe the sales manager has 3 or 4 sales staff, and if he's going to or he or she going to rely on that sales manager to embrace this, success isn't always guaranteed, because look, it takes work, right? You're adopting new processes, new systems. It really has to be pushed from the top down. Otherwise, it's pretty rare unless you have a fantastic sales manager and they're out there, right? But at the end of the day, if the owner isn't behind this, pushing it, you're going to get mixed results.
Yeah, the thing that's unique about Grosso University, when I'm talking to contractors about a certain technology, again, we promote things that we believe in because we're actively using it in our own retail. Mm-hmm. So we can just show them real case studies by using software like One Click, different financing partners. Here's the result. And because of how much belief we have in the technology, like One Click and all these different finance partners, again, almost in a similar fashion, we're kind of relaying that belief to our clients, these contractors, and they've only embraced that stuff as a result, because they see proof is in the numbers, right? They want to seeing right. is believing, and we can show them those real case studies as to what that technology did for our business.
Right. No, it makes sense. I think Yeah, last summer we did a study just gauging contractors by demographic data. What's your percentage of revenue? Which CRM do you have? Just some of the basic high level things. We found that 85% of our respondents were doing less than $3 million
Yep.
in business. So when we talk about systemization, right before the call, Guy, you had thrown out the book E-Myth, which great book to read if you run any type of business on this subject. But for the guy who's not, so in E-Myth, they really line out and help me with this, make sure I get these right. So there's a practitioner, or like the technician, the guy who nails the shingles on. There's a sales manager who likes to do everything, and then there's the entrepreneur who has the vision and the leadership. Are those, if I remember that correctly, is that right?
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody, and Dom and I were laughing about it earlier. There's the E-Myth book, and then the author wrote one version for contractors, which is about a 1/4 inch thick. So he clearly understands what small attention span we have. But really, I think what Dom led this whole conversation with is developing processes. I mean, think of it, if you were going to franchise your remodeling business, you couldn't do anything with a franchise model without creating processes. And that's what Dominic's been alluding to. And E-Myth really gets you thinking about, do I want to be swinging the hammer when I'm 60? No, I want to be able to run a business that I can walk away from, hand off to my kids, go on vacation, that's self-functioning. Well, you better start making those processes early on in your business. Otherwise, you're working in your business, not on your business.
Yeah, we talk about franchise. I mean, that's obviously what we build out, is run your business like a franchise. There's a reason why over 80% of franchises succeed and over 96% of contractors fail, is because, again, it's just shooting from the hip, wild, wild west. There's no method of the madness. And eventually they hit that wall, and it's either going to put them out of business or they're going to be able to punch through it by embracing a lot of the things that we're describing here.
Right. So systemization. Not everyone, from a personality standpoint, we can get into personality profiles and all that stuff, but not everyone's a systematizer. You have some people who really enjoy the hammer. Some guys really, myself, I'm more managerial driven. Some guys are entrepreneurial, just like dreaming and thinking about the future and going forward. What's your advice to somebody who's not, if they're not systems driven, and they want to go from Chuck to Charlie, right? To kind of steal your language on that guy. I like that. What's the word of advice to them? What do they do?
Yeah, what a lot of our clients are doing is, if they are more of that hands-on, whether they're the guy actually putting the roof on or the visionary, but they're not really the guy that's going to get their sales team to buy into the system, is look to bring somebody in that can, right? Look to bring somebody in. The amount of return on that investment is going to be tenfold. And that's essentially, when I got promoted to being a sales leader and fully embracing the system, I went from me personally consistently selling $1.5 million plus a year to now training 50 salespeople that are selling $1.5 million a year. So I think it's important that if you yourself don't have that type of personality where I'm going to learn this sales process, be system oriented, and then try to get my team to also follow a step selling sales system, then to me, it's not optional. We have to bring somebody onto our team that can and run with that 100% wholeheartedly. Again, this is not a half-hearted mission. This has got to be all in 100%. And the rate at which they're going to grow and scale that team is going to be phenomenal. So the first thing I have my guys do, they get the foundation built out. They get a leader that can run with it. And then they get the recruiting engine fired up for their sales team and begin recruiting immediately. And once you have these things, you have the training books in place. And this is some of the foundational elements I can explain. Is we have a 150-page Bible of in-home selling that I wrote, that is kind of like your roadmap to the sale, that kind of outlines the whole step selling sales process. We got the video training series that literally goes on lockstep with the training book. So it literally shows them, here's the stuff in writing, here's the fill in the blanks, here's the video to go with that chapter. And then we have all the templates for policy and procedure, how to comp your sales team. Clarity is my favorite word in sales leadership, or if you lead any team, you got to have clarity on what the expectations are, roles and responsibilities. So we build all this stuff out, and then we educate those leaders how to use those tools and run with them. And sometimes I'm working with the owner who's trying to do it himself, but even that person, I can't do this all on my own. It's impossible. because I'm trying to be the visionary. I'm trying to run my business, right? Work on my business, but I'm in the trenches all day long trying to coach and train salespeople. So we want to take that off their plate. And that's why, like, I started working with sales leaders almost first and foremost, because I knew without a great sales leader, someone dedicated to that, it's going to be very difficult for a company to grow and scale their sales division properly. So,
yeah, and Dominic, there may be contractors listening to us and thinking, you know what, I don't want to be at 5 million or 10 million. I'm happy with $1 million. I'm happy with 650,000. We always say with people in regards to One Click Contractors tool, people are looking for either to grow or to save time. So even if you maybe you're happy with your 5 guys and you're doing roofs or you're doing kitchen remodels, but the developing processes is going to put you in a better place long term. You're going to be home, have more time with your family, and ultimately the goal should be that you're more profitable. If you're comfortable at $1 million, then man, having processes is going to make you more profitable, and you're going to be home. I remember doing bids at 1 o'clock in the morning because I didn't want to take away from my young family at the time. And man, if I'd had processes like there are today, whole different world.
Yeah, exactly. We teach people how to maximize every opportunity that's in front of them. So it's not necessarily you have to work twice as much or drive twice as far to make twice as much money. We get you to squeeze the juice out of the opportunities that you currently have and have more of that work-life balance if that's what you desire. And certainly having the technology in place. So we do something at Grosso University that's very attractive. We talk about beginning with the end in mind for those companies that so desire to set themselves up for acquisition potentially or exit the business. One thing these private equity firms look for is, can your business run absent of yourself?
Yeah.
And that's never going to happen unless we start getting these foundational elements put in place, run our business like a franchise, and begin to delegate certain things. So everyone has their lane. So here's the respective lane, you run with that. Here's my call center manager. Here's my sales manager. Here's my operations manager. And I could literally step away. I could be on a beach somewhere, sipping Mai Tais, floating around, and still be able to run my business because everything is set in place. All the processes are there. And one thing that's not talked about enough is the back end of the business. What's one of the number one pain points right now with the industry is production in the back end. So that's why, even for us and the back end of the business, we have training and consulting to show them how to develop processes and systems to get more crews. Here's how you compensate your crews. Here's how you incentivize. Here's how you bonus them. Here's how you take a job from full call to install using your CRM, right? Here's how you collect more often than not. I mean, all that stuff is important, but that's all about developing those processes and systems. So again, you can get to the point where you can live your life.
Yeah, Tom, it's interesting you mentioned that about, from if you were an investor investing in a company that's doing X number of millions of dollars versus the individual. And a lot of us, when we built a business like that, okay, maybe it's a little bit of ego that you'd like to think that you are the business, but you shouldn't be. And I remember, years and years and years ago, a client had asked me, we were getting ready to do a remodel, and she asked me if I was going to be on the job. And I said, well, I'll come and check on it. And at that moment, I realized that it's good that she had confidence in me, but I made the mistake of her not having confidence in my company. And then I realized I'm never going to get away from this if I don't build systems in place to get her to be confident with my project foremans. That was the aha moment for me. So I think what you just said is it makes a lot of sense for contractors to look at it from an outside perspective. Would you invest in this company, or are you investing in the guy or the gal? And if they get hit by a bus, where's your investment at? So that's how you should be looking at your company.
What we try to make abundantly clear to contractors is volumes for vanity, profits for sanity. So let's say you're comfortable at 5 million. So what we would prefer is that you sell 5 million, making more profit.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
Again, it doesn't necessarily mean working more, but that's why having a set sales process in place, because that's going to hold your reps accountable to a certain level of profitability more often than not. And you're going to see that 5 million, are you making 2% net profit at the end of the year or 20% net profit at the end of the year? Because why are we doing this? Because we want to beautify America, right? Why are you? At some point, we got to be saying, I'd like to make some money. And here's the honest to God truth. If you're not making 7 figures or more as a contractor and owner, you're missing the opportunity, right? And that's actually one metric that they don't talk about when they talk about the top 500 and some of the highest volume producing companies on the planet Earth. They never really talk about profitability, but that's our primary focus. I want to make sure your salespeople know how to sell profitably, building in the right amount of value, getting the right margin, how to sell low-cost financing properly, use it as a boomerang to the sale and not give away the farm. And also owners, how do you set your pricing in OneClick? How do you build that in so that you're getting the right margin, the right gross margin after labor and material? How do we establish that? So there's so many moving parts to this, but ultimately, if you don't want to go to like 20, 30 million, if that's not something that you're interested in, that's great. Let's figure out how to make that 3 to 5, 6 million way more profitable for you, which is another reason why all these things we're talking about are, again, in my opinion, not optional. I think they're so important.
Yeah, again, that's where financing. I mean, if you can increase your ticket size from 35,000 to 55,000,
oh yeah,
it's at the end of the day, it should be a better customer experience for the homeowner too. And why go and move your crews to a whole nother job site, expand what you're doing on that one job site? It just makes sense. And for those people who've never been in the commercial side of things, I know commercial, very, very large contractors on the West Coast that are begging for a 5% profit. And, it's a whole different world. Yes, they're doing $1 billion in sales, but just the thinking, the mentality of residential remodeling contractors, Dom, you're absolutely right. I mean, we should be getting the most profit we can, where maybe you can't in the commercial space. You should be able to get it in the residential space.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I started selling windows, we were selling them at about $700 a window, $700 per opening. And then over time, our prices went up to the point where it was over $1,800 a window, good quality window and everything. But what was interesting is our closing didn't go down. It actually increased every year. Every year we had a price increase, the sales performance increased. So again, a lot of contractors are afraid to raise their prices because they think it's going to take money out of their pocket. It will not. If you have the right sales system in place, you embrace technology like OneClick, you get everything set in stone, and they know how to build the right amount of value, you can raise your prices where you're making a good, hearty margin on every single job that comes through. You're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. And again, you're not going to see any dip in the performance. If anything, it's going to increase dramatically.
Right. Here's one thing. Dom, I don't know where you stand on this, but I've been doing for a lot of years, doing research as a consultant for different industries like the insurance, appraisal, assessor industries. I believe that next year there's going to be a change in the economy. And some people would, maybe contractors today are a little bit spoiled. I've been there in being a contractor in Southern California. We have our good years, we have our bad years. But having a sales organization, a sales process, if the economy changes next year, is going to be even more critical. Would you agree?
100%. I mean, having a sales process, I don't want to say it makes you recession proof, but it pretty much does. Because again, you can't just rely on, we have all these trillions of dollars and people spending more time at home. And 2020, 2021 were record years for the industry. People were just kind of making money despite having any system at all. And we kind of get complacent with that. We get comfortable. But when things get tough, let's say the banks tighten up their lending or people don't have as much disposable income, people are losing their jobs potentially, the economy tanks, the housing market crashes, we don't know. Having that sales process is so important. And that's where when I first started, it was right after the economic crash of 2008, 2009. That's right when I started, and things were still starting to ramp up. But right out of the gate, because I had a system, I was a 50% closer without even knowing what the heck I was doing. Just because I had the system to follow. Again, I almost had to be creative not to realize success. So it's so important because, again, one thing owners have to understand is nobody's ever going to believe in your company as much as you do. That's why you maybe can go into a home without a sales process and have some level of success because it's your baby. Right. This is your company. It's your products and services. You're going to believe in this and you're going to be able to influence people to do things. But your sales team is never going to believe in your company as much as you do. That's why I need a sales process that they can follow so they can still realize success more often than not without necessarily being the owner of the business, right?
Well, it certainly helps the salesperson to believe in the company if they're more profitable.
Yeah, exactly. The sales rep's making good money.
Yep.
I mean, not that anyone needs to know this, but I got salespeople I've trained making over $500,000 a year, and the companies are happy to pay it because they're selling $5-6 million a year. Okay, so I'm sure no one on this call listening to this would complain about a $6 million producer, right?
Right.
That's the reality. When you have that stuff in place, I mean, literally, sky is the limit. It's unlimited where you can take it.
Yeah. All right, guys, this has been awesome. I've got a page of notes here. If I was on Twitter, I'd probably be tweeting some of this, but I'm not because I'm like to be focused. But whether you're trying to grow something to 5 million, 50 million, 500 million, systems, right? It leads to peace of mind, right? So whether you're wanting to have a simple life or manage a super complex organization, it isn't that like in the day and age we live in with the constant buzzing of phones and technology and like everything going on. Having peace, having consistency, knowing that if you walk away and go to Hawaii or go sit on the beach or something, the business is going to run like that. I think there's a lot of value in that peace of mind. As we wrap up here, I've got one more question, and then if you guys can both share this, how to get in touch with you. And this is kind of in my calls with contractors when they're thinking about purchasing leads from us or other companies. I always say we can provide you with the gasoline for your race car, but you have to build the race car, right? So what's one, and this is definitely some self-interest here. What's one practical tip that any company could put in place to get a better ROI on their marketing or their lead spend? Just one thing that you would recommend they could just walk away and do.
Yeah, so let me just kind of chime in. The first thing that we do when we're consulting with owners and managers is we establish a benchmark that their sales team's held accountable to. Now, we grade our salespeople on NSLI or slugging. Now, that stands for net sale per lead issued, okay? Because you got to ask yourself, for every lead that I give my sales team on a silver platter, what type of return on investment am I demanding I get out of that? A lot of contractors have no idea what that number is. They have no idea how to even benchmark their salespeople, right? So what we do is we quantify, okay, let's take your entire marketing spend for the entire year. How much money, all in marketing expenditure. Now, how many leads did that garner in 2021? This is a really simple exercise you can do. So you take your total marketing spend, how many leads that garnered, and then you literally take your marketing spend divided by issued leads, and that'll give you your average cost for a fully issued lead. So once I know, let's say I'm spending $300 on average for a lead. Now, what we aim for our contractors and our clients is to make sure that their marketing is somewhere in the ballpark of 10% or less of their total budget. Now, how do we ensure that that's the case? So we take that $300 per issued lead and we establish the sales slugging average or NSLI at 10 times or 10-to-1 ratio against the average cost per issued lead. So what that means is if I'm at $300 per lead, I would demand that my sales team has a $3,000 plus slugging average or NSLI. And what that tells you as an owner is every time I'm giving my salesperson a lead, I know that I'm getting at least $3,000 in revenue or a 10x return on my marketing spend. Now that's going back to clarity, right? So I see a lot of companies that have no clarity at all on what's expected out of their salespeople. So when I'm going out in the field and I'm a sales pro and I know that I must exceed $3,000 slugging to maintain employment, that makes it very, very easy, right, to hold them accountable. Again, accountability is one of the most important things to have in your sales culture, and make sure you have clear benchmarks that they are graded on. So that would be my first and foremost thing. Whatever you're spending on marketing, we got to figure out how can we realize a 10-to-1 ratio on our marketing spend. And it's not an exact science, but if you can fall within that 10 to 12% or less, I guess some clients that are at 5%, which is even better, right?
Yeah.
But that's going to ensure that you're realizing the proper return on investment on your leads.
Cool. Yeah, Dom, that was an awesome explanation. Big picture. I think, Matt, that question, that could be a whole nother webinar, right? I mean,
Yep.
If you just look at, we know that the contractors today using social media, doing any kind of content marketing strategy, they're the 45 and up and the 45 and under. the 45 and up are using different platforms than the 45 and under. So if those are the contractors using those different platforms, what are their customers using? So if you don't know who your audience is that you're targeting as a contractor, are you targeting millennials? Well, you're going to be using Instagram. Are you targeting older 40 and over? You're using Facebook. So there's really knowing your audience and knowing how you're trying to go after them from a lead gen perspective, really critical. And again, we could talk all day on what contractors should use. But I think at the end of the day, Dom's is exactly right. Is if you can do all that, you can create your content marketing strategy around that. I think at a basic level, the contractors that, let's just say they're less than $1 million, it's all about community. You have to build a community, whether it's through Instagram, Facebook posts. If you're a local contractor in a small area, you start with community. You start sharing what you're doing, get people interacting on a communal level. And if you can, hub and spoke that for larger businesses, that's what we're seeing more and more today is people are tuning out, the Google searches and the paid advertisements, and they're relying on other people they know to validate that this person's a good choice as a contractor. So if you're not focusing on how to improve awareness within whatever community you're targeting, you're spending money. But at the end of the day, whatever you choose, to Dominic's point, you better have some metrics around it that tie into your sales orgs so you know that it's paying off.
Yeah, definitely. So quick recap on that. Clarify what your NSLI is so you can hold your sales reps accountable, create that accountability in your culture. And then if you're a smaller contractor, get grassroots in your community so you can generate positive momentum, right? So you can even get to that place of knowing your numbers. So
yeah, cool. And even if you're a larger contractor, you're still seeing it's that hub and spoke effect. You're still seeing regions or offices, even for a nationwide contractor, they're still participating, they're still showing their work, they're still engaging at a community level. So that whether you're small or big, you still have to break it down into digestible, content.
Cool. No, that makes sense. Well, I appreciate just a respect for your time and for all of our listeners. I want to wrap up here. Thank you both so much for jumping on the call with me here. What is the best way for a contractor to reach out to each of you if they have more questions or they just want to dialogue or learn more about your products and services?
Yeah, so our primary contact at Grosso University is mburke, that's MBURKE at grossouniversity.com. Otherwise, you can just simply go to grossouniversity.com. You can check out, we got a lot of content out there. We got a YouTube channel. We got a podcast. We got all kinds of stuff going on. But again, we're actually launching some stuff that's going to be pretty groundbreaking for the industry. And this may be something that these contractors are interested in. I'm actually launching as of January 10th, what we call a sales academy. So if you don't want to build the sales team at all, just let us know. We actually offer now, we're going to be recruiting, interviewing, and training salespeople that are going to be placed into contractors nationwide with a performance guarantee in writing. So essentially what that means is we give you a fully trained sales pro that knows the system forwards and backwards. And if they don't exceed the performance standards, you don't pay a penny. So if you don't want to build that sales team, we can do that for you. We're also launching some new technology, as a matter of fact, where you don't need a field manager anymore. We actually take your phone drops from your sales team. We have the whole ride-along app that actually grades a salesperson on following the step selling process, whether or not they're executing. And then, of course, we have ongoing training and support. We have weekly meetings. We have seminars and events, you name it. I mean, anything you need to grow and scale your sales department, please contact us. We can literally take you from zero to hero, so to speak, in a very short period of time and make you a dominant force in your market.
Yeah, so I would say that, thanks, Dom. I would add that what that group is putting together, there is no silver bullet for contractors when it comes to technology. It's a stack. I mean, you really are putting different pieces of the puzzle together. One Click Contractor contractor.com if you want more information on the sales component. Oftentimes contractors, when they get started, they think of, well, how do I invoice this customer? And maybe they use somebody like QuickBooks, and then they create they use a CRM. And oftentimes they don't realize that there's the first part of that whole tech stack is that sales enablement, which is what One Click Contractor is. I'm happy if anybody has any questions, Guy at OneClickContractor.com. Shoot me an email. We can do a demo. We can get you set up and just look at what types of other products are out there that work within our tool, like the Engages of the world, the great sales presentation, financing partners. Dominic's guys can do the same thing. It can walk you through how to set all that up. I'm happy to help you. But yeah, you go to Guy at OneClickContractor.com or just go to our website and schedule a demo.
And I want to throw this out there just because I think it's important for the listeners to hear. Before, at the tail end of my career at Mad City, I actually was selling exclusively virtually, but never stepping foot. And I was selling replacement windows and wet area only acrylic bath systems. Now, if you look at both those products, of course, there is advantages to being able to go into the house and actually have them touch and feel. But using One Click Contractor, all the financing integration, and our step selling sales process, I reimagined the whole thing for virtual selling. I was closing over 40% plus on a one-call close without ever stepping foot in a customer's house. So if you ever want to go, because I think that's going to be pretty inevitable here in the future, that virtual has to be a part of your strategy. If there's something that, if you're looking to have that capability, definitely reach out to One Click, definitely talk to us. We can show you how you can merge all this stuff together, these processes and systems and technology, to literally, you never have to even go to the prospect's house and realize boatloads of success. So I just wanted to plant that seed that it's unlimited what you're capable of once you have this stuff implemented in your organization.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you guys both so much again for being here. If you took your time to watch this today, we appreciate you guys, and we wish you nothing but success.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Thank you. And yes, you are a closer.
Get it.